This hour is a resolution by the United Nations where about 51 nations are signatories. This is about the atrocities against the Chinese Uyghur Muslims and clearly the kind of atrocities and human rights violations that they have faced very recently. The UN General Assembly's third committee, which deals with human rights, has taken up this issue. As I said, 51 countries have signed this joint declaration. Nations like Canada, Germany, France, Japan, United States, United Kingdom and others have signed this particular move that we are talking about, and it's an interesting one to talk about because keeping in mind China's proximity with countries like Pakistan and the fact that the Chinese have been indulging in illegal detentions, violations of human rights, this becomes a burning issue for the United Nations as well. Let me cut across to our managing editor Anand Narasimhan. He's with us on the broadcast to give us more perspective. The cause of Uyghur Muslims, Anand, must be spoken about, and now the United Nations has taken it up.
Well, the pressure is being built on China, which is actually for a long time sitting as the chair of the UNHRC. And nobody questioned about the rights of the Uyghurs in what is East Turkestan, or what the Chinese call as the new territory, or Xinjiang.
Yeah.
And nearly 3 million Uyghurs we are given to understand. That's the unconfirmed number, although the CCP outrightly denies these numbers and the PLA denies these numbers. But the kind of claims that have been made by the Uyghur Congress was taken into cognizance even by the Biden administration, and now 51 nations have become signatories to this aspect, to this entire document, which will now be presented and raised at the UN, and China will be brought to account.
Yep.
Now there is satellite imagery, if you were to go by what the Uyghur Congress actually claims, and we are hopeful that we should have somebody from the Uyghur Congress joining us here on your broadcast.
Yeah.
But more importantly, on the Nation at 5, but more importantly, their claim is that more than 15,000 establishments and places, satellite imagery confirms, have been roughshod by the PLA. Places of worship have been converted into places of sanitation and health and public toilets, etc. Places of prayer have been converted and they've been deliberately taken away, and people are still being kept in concentration camps. Here on CNN News 18, multiple such people who have lost, whose parents, mothers, sisters, some family member is in a concentration camp and they have had to flee China and they are settled in some other nation. We had people joining us from Turkey, from Europe, who have come out and said that this is the heights that a nation like this is able to get away with such a huge amount of persecution. China, on the other hand, raises the issue of the ETIM as a terrorist outfit which is operating out of Afghanistan, and one of the pincers on the Taliban is that they have to act against the ETIM from officiating or acting on what China claims is its soil, which is actually Uyghur territory or East Turkestan.
Yeah.
So that's China's position, that ETIM is a terrorist outfit, but it tries to broad brush all that it is doing with the Uyghur people. Now with 51 nations becoming signatories, this is not going to be easy for China to just wash away or wish away.
I can't help but talk about a country like Pakistan, which has such close proximity to the Chinese and has always skirted the issue and cause of Uyghur Muslims. Now, with about 51 nations, as you pointed out, taking up this issue, the question somewhere is also on Pakistan.
Pakistan itself has a sorry record of treating not just minorities but even Muslims and non-Sunni. So they have a problem with Shias, they have a problem with Ismailis, Sufi, Ahmadiyas that they don't even consider as Muslims, so that's what they have done. Their own, Muhammad Ali Jinnah was a Shia, but it's not mentioned, and he was given a Sunni burial. So that's the kind of level of bigotry that is expected. So for them to call themselves as champions of the Muslim cause or Islamic world is very rich coming from Pakistan. The other thing is that Pakistan has been caught as a vassal state of the Chinese since 1971, when the Chinese gave them a treasure trove or a treasure chest to try and just slice off the rest of northeast of India and to try and control all of those positions. They gave them warplanes. So Chinese have been active on Pakistani soil for a long time, and they've played this dangerous game. Now reports are suggesting that Pakistan has actually pledged 2 islands of the coast of Karachi, Badal and Bundu Islands, to the Chinese, and the Chinese naval ships can dock in that region. China is wanting boots on ground in Pakistan because they don't trust the Pakistanis. So, and they've literally taken over all of CPEC, territory that doesn't belong to Pakistan. Pakistan has actually signed away to the Chinese. So it's a different level itself. They can't even say anything else but bow down to the Chinese, because beyond that the Pakistan state cannot say anything to the Chinese. So to expect Pakistan to stand up for the cause of Uyghur Muslims is itself too much in terms of wishing.
Yes.
Too much to expect. Plus the hypocrisy stands. Because you ask the Pakistanis about Uyghur Muslims and the only thing they will talk is Kashmir. So they have nothing else to say because they have a poor record at home and they have a poor record in terms of standing up for the right causes. And Pakistan, which is Baloch are Muslims. And since October 1947, Pakistan has been running roughshod over Balochistan. So they themselves have a lot of questions to answer. So,
even internally, even from the Baloch activists.
So that is quite rich coming from the Pakistanis, and you can't expect much from the establishment there because they are dealing with a lot of issues themselves. But China, on the other hand, now will be pushed because from multiple corners in terms of how they are handling human rights, and this demographic genocide argument and allegation is a serious one because the Tibetans are making it. It's been made as far as the inner Manchurian region is concerned because the Manchurians are no longer around, and now that entire Manchu state has been now converted into Han population, and they are trying to do the same thing in this new territory or Xinjiang.
Thank you, Anand, for putting that into perspective. We are also cutting across to Mr. Abdul Hakim Idris. He's a Uyghur writer and an activist, somebody who's taken up this cause on multiple occasions. Mr. Idris, good evening. Thank you so much for joining us here on CNN News 18 on the Nation at 5. 51 nations in support of the kind of atrocities which the Uyghur Muslims are facing in China right now. Are you happy with the way and manner in which the United Nations has taken this up?
Good morning from Washington and good evening in India. Thank you so much for having me there. We are, how could we be happy? This genocide almost going 7 years. Millions of people are disappearing, and they're still in concentration camps, turning all East Turkestan in open air prisons. And still we cannot, have a discussion in UN human rights bodies. And those countries, we are thankful to 51 countries for the joint statement, what they did. But we are very sorry not have the majority Muslim countries from around the world. Just only Albania is there. And many other, big countries not in the joint statements. It's like still it's a good diplomatic win for us, while the Chinese communist regime hosted more than 140 countries leader in Beijing, celebrating their one belt and one road initiative, which is attempt to colonize the other countries and binding to China. So we are a little bit happy, but not.
Mr. Idris, why do you think that the Muslim world has looked away from the cause of the Uyghur Muslims? My colleague Anand Narsimhan was also talking about the country of Pakistan, and you yourself pointed out that how various Muslim nations have failed to take up this cause in the way and form that you would want them to, because at the end of the day, these are human rights violations which are happening at the hands of the Chinese authorities. Why do you think that the world has looked away? And I'm talking particularly about the Muslim world.
I think, they have interest on Chinese money, first. Second, they have interest in Chinese technique to oppress their own people. As you know, most of the Muslim countries are not democratic countries. And when democratic countries, there are hypocrites if it comes to China. They don't want to see hear on this speak, about the Uyghur Muslim issue in China, which is facing the genocide. And when it is come to Islamophobia around the world, they are, attacking, and the Organization of Islamic Cooperation holding a joint statement and condemning it. But no one want to see how Chinese Communist Party burnt millions of Quran, destroyed thousands of mosques. Imagine it's almost 15 years. We cannot have education on our language, and we cannot get any choice or chance to get know our religion. And there are putting our children in like a mass in schools, and educating them, like a Chinese language in the atheistic system.
Yeah,
So it
yeah.
means they are trying to eradicate the religions, from us, from Tibetan, from Mongolian, even Hong Kong. But unfortunately, many Muslim countries are looking China as like a source for the money, source for secure their power in own country, because China exporting already surveillance system and mass, technical data they can use to oppress their people.
Mr. Idris, do you also think that it exposes the intellectual and ideological hypocrisy of many countries? And I don't want to name one particular country here, but there are many countries who try and internationalize the cause of Kashmir. They talk about various internal issues of India, for example, and I'm sure it applies to the rest of the world as well, but never talk about the real human right violations which, say, the Uyghur Muslims are facing right now. Is there ideological bankruptcy at play when it comes to various countries?
Yes, if you look the AI system around the world is like more than 200 companies tested their products in our country to collect the data, surveillance, face recognition for organ harvesting, and then they are exporting to other country right now. And then I think the many universities. I'm not talking about university in Islamic countries. I'm talking the universities here in the Western countries are looking for Chinese money, and even the intellectual scholars, they are not, looking at the human rights and the genocide issue as a humanitarian issue. They just looking, if I do something on the right about this issue, China will punish me. We have the make clear here, in Chinese data, all humanity, there are friend of China, enemy of the China, then between them. The China will make sure enemy of China never get a good job in their countries. Friend of China will always will promote it, and they are collecting the data from humanity, from their social media like a TikTok, and I'm glad that India banned it, and I think this is like a intellectual bankruptcy, intellectual hypocrisy, as you said, and what we are facing today.
Absolutely. So going forward, this issue finally has got the attention of United Nations, 51 nations signatories, but many would argue this is not enough. For this cause to be taken up far more vociferously, what would you like the international organizations like the United Nations to do, or the United Nations Human Rights Council to do?
I think that this is what we are momentum getting from the United Nations, like a joint statement from the member states. But if you look the UN bodies, mostly people are there friend of China, and you cannot move, even have discussion in UN Human Rights Commission about the Uyghur genocide, Uyghur issue. Last year, the UN Human Rights Commission did a report and declared, China conducting crimes against humanity in our country, in East Turkestan. But the same body cannot have a discussion because many members are against it. I think as a Uyghurs, we are seeing from the UN like the total, taken over by the China, and I think that many people, many countries around the world should pay attention. If it comes to UN bodies and human rights councils, and what we are not giving up. We want to push, in the European Parliament, U.S. Congress, and the many other countries. And we are at the same time, expecting from India the same, because we are a neighbor across the border, the China all the ways, trying to take over land from India, which is to our border to our country. We have never problem with India, 1,000 years, and this is the other issue.
Mr. Abdul Hakim Idris, thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast. Thank you so much for sharing your views and the cause on which you've been working. And we hope that the international organizations, agencies, and the Muslim world, of course, is able to take up this cause with as much vigor that it deserves. Moving on to another big story of the day, the entire legal battle of Mahua Moitra landed at the Delhi High Court, and this is an entire case where allegations and serious allegations of impropriety have been made against TMC MP Mahua Moitra. The allegation against her is that she compromised the security of her login credentials with the parliament, and the allegations are that she charged money, kickbacks, for asking certain questions on the floor of the House and Parliament. There's an ethics committee which is looking into the matter. And the defamation suits that were filed by Mahua Moitra, that hearing also happened at the Delhi High Court today. The matter was adjourned. This after one of the lawyers informed the court that I.N.D.I.A, the lawyer who's in the eye of storm, informed the court that in fact Mahua Moitra's counsel reached out to him to withdraw the case, and that's when Gopal Sankar Narayan said he's not going to represent her, or he has withdrawn from the case. Let's talk about this letter to CBI that has been written, the gifts that were allegedly received by Mahua Moitra. iPhones, one of the things, expensive phones, diamond and emerald jewelry that was given to her, Hermes and Louis Vuitton scarves, of course these are expensive branded items, about 35 pairs of Salvatore Ferragamo shoes, also dozens of French and Italian wines that she owns, luxury cosmetics from Dubai, and also Gucci leather bags. These are luxury expensive items which cost a lot. These are international brands, and having even one item from their kitty costs a lot. And these are the expensive gift items that allegedly Mahua Moitra received as kickbacks. And this is the letter to CBI that has been written. My colleague Payal is joining us on the broadcast and getting us more details on the story. Payal, first a bit about the ethics committee. How does the procedure move on as far as the ethics committee is concerned?
Well, the ethics committee has summoned Jay Anand and of course Nishikant Dubey before it on the 26th, and after which of course there will be another summoning of a lot of witnesses in the case, including the fact that Mahua Moitra herself will be summoned. And once the Parliament committee is satisfied with the fact that they've got enough proof on record, because everybody who makes any allegations and counter allegations will have to prove it, with some facts and evidences. The committee in its wisdom will examine the entire issue, prepare a report and then give it over to the Lok Sabha Speaker, because the ultimate authority of the Parliament lies with the Lok Sabha Speaker. But obviously the Parliament committee, if they find merit in the allegations that have been levied against Mahua Moitra, can also sort of propose or recommend that her membership should be taken away and she should be expelled as a member of Parliament.
All right, Pal, thank you so much for giving us all that perspective. We'll continue coming back to you for more. Meanwhile, some reactions lined up on this story.
देखिए, मेरी ऑफिस ने अभी मुझको सूचित किया है कि चंदानी की एक 2 पेज की चिट्ठी आई है। जैसा कि आप जानते हैं 26 तारीख को एथिक्स कमेटी की बैठक बुलाई गई है। उसमें निशिकांत दुबे जी को और दूसरे जो वकील साहब हैं उन लोगों को बुलाया गया है। सारे सबूतों के साथ वो आके एथिक्स कमेटी में अपना बयान भी दर्ज कराएं और जो भी सबूत उनके पास है उन सबूत को एथिक्स कमेटी को दे। एथिक्स कमेटी इन सारे सबूतों को संज्ञान में लेगी, उसका एग्जामिन करेगी। एग्जामिन करने के बाद जो भी निर्णय एथिक्स कमेटी का होगा, देखिए ये अभी कहना कि जल्दबाजी होगा, लेकिन निश्चित रूप से पहले निशिकांत जी का जो साक्ष्य है उसका एग्जामिन होगा। अभी एक पक्ष और आ गया हीरा चंदानी का, उसका भी एग्जामिन होगा। उसके बाद कमेटी निर्णय लेगी कि जो महुआ मोइत्रा है उसका भी पक्ष जानने का प्रयास करेगी। उनके ऊपर जो गंभीर चार्जेस हैं उसके बचाव में क्या कहना चाहती हैं, उनके पास क्या पेपर है, इन सब को लेके एग्जामिन करने के बाद ही कमेटी किसी निर्णय पे पहुंचेगी।
और जब ये एक प्रकार से सबजुडिस है, लोकसभा की एथिक्स कमेटी के सामने है, सारा विषय सामने आना चाहिए, क्योंकि संसदीय प्रणाली में घूसखोरी की कोई स्थान नहीं है। तो उसकी जो कानूनी प्रक्रिया होगा, पार्लियामेंट ने पिछले दिनों में भी उसके ऊपर बहुत उदाहरण रखा है। वो सारा विषय पहले एथिक्स कमेटी के सामने पूरा स्पष्ट हो। एथिक्स कमेटी एक योग्य कमेटी है, लोकसभा के अध्यक्ष जी ने उसको काम दिया है, वो करे पहले काम अपना।
महुआ मोइत्रा का गुलाम है, क्यों दे रहा था, गिफ्ट क्यों दे रहा था? क्यों बच्चा है, क्यों लॉगिन पासवर्ड लिया उसने? ये सब विपक्ष के सारे रास्ते बंद हैं। जैसे इलेक्टोरल बॉन्ड है, इलेक्टोरल बॉन्ड में बीजेपी को ही पैसा मिल रहा है, क्योंकि गवर्नमेंट के पास में सोर्स है कि इलेक्टोरल बॉन्ड के थ्रू पैसा देने वाला है कौन। और काला धन को सबसे ज़्यादा जस्टिफाइड अगर किसी ने किया तो इस देश की सरकार ने किया कि पॉलिटिकल पार्टी पैसा जहाँ से भी ले उसका स्रोत नहीं बताया जाएगा। ये लोग भ्रष्टाचार की बात करते हैं, और महुआ मित्रा वाला बात तो सीधा समझ में आता है।
Completely believe that the Central Bureau of Investigation and the N.I.A. should take up this issue and see how far this woman went on to violate our national security and breach our national security, because all her questions in the parliament were in violation or were absolutely neglecting our national security. And I believe that the Central Bureau of Investigation, the N.I.A. and especially the Speaker of the Lok Sabha should take cognizance of her crime.
Well, we'll continue tracking that story and much more here on CNN News 18. For now, slipping into a very short break. Stay tuned, stay with us.
Warning of a rocket attack.
Hundreds of people were killed.
गाजा बॉर्डर जिरौट की पहली बार हम यहाँ पहुँचे हम।
Does Israel want a wider war? Does this derail all of that?
How do you see the Indian government stand as of now?
What we have witnessed in Israel as part of these Hamas attacks.
We can't let petty, partisan, angry politics get in the way of our responsibility as a great nation. We cannot and will not let terrorists like Hamas and tyrants like Putin win. I refuse to let that happen. In moments like these, we have to remember who we are. We are the United States of America. The United States of America. And there is nothing beyond our capacity if we do it together. My fellow Americans, thank you for your time. May God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Good evening, my fellow Americans. We're facing an inflection point in history. One of those moments where the decisions we make today are going to determine the future for decades to come. That's what I'd like to talk with you about tonight. You know, earlier this morning I returned from Israel. They tell me I'm the first American president to travel there during the war. I met with the Prime Minister and members of his cabinet. And most movingly, I met with Israelis who had personally lived through horrific horror of the attack by Hamas on the 7th of October. More than 1,300 people slaughtered in Israel, including at least 32 American citizens. Scores of innocents, from infants to the elderly grandparents. Israelis, Americans taken hostage. As I told the families of Americans being held captive by Hamas, we're pursuing every avenue to bring their loved ones home. As president, there is no higher priority for me than the safety of Americans held hostage. The terrorist group Hamas unleashed pure, unadulterated evil in the world. But sadly, the Jewish people know perhaps better than anyone that there is no limit to the depravity of people when they want to inflict pain on others. In Israel, I saw people who are strong, determined, resilient, and also angry, in shock and in deep, deep pain. I also spoke with President Abbas, the Palestinian Authority, and reiterated the United States remains committed to the Palestinian people's right to dignity and to self-determination. The actions of Hamas terrorists don't take that right away. Like so many other, I'm heartbroken by the tragic loss of Palestinian life, including the explosion at the hospital in Gaza, which was not done by the Israelis. We mourn every innocent life lost. We can't ignore the humanity of innocent Palestinians who only want to live in peace and have an opportunity. You know, the assault on Israel echoes nearly 20 months of war, tragedy, and brutality inflicted on the people of Ukraine, people that were very badly hurt since Putin launched his all-out invasion. We've not forgotten the mass graves, the bodies found bearing signs of torture, rape used as a weapon by the Russians, and thousands of Ukrainian children forcibly taken into Russia, stolen from their parents. It's sick. Hamas and Putin represent different threats, but they share this in common. They both want to completely annihilate a neighboring democracy, completely annihilate it. Hamas' stated purpose for existing is the destruction of the state of Israel and the murder of Jewish people. Hamas does not represent the Palestinian people. Hamas uses Palestinian civilians as human shields, and innocent Palestinian families are suffering greatly because of them. Meanwhile, Putin denies Ukraine has or ever had real statehood. He claims the Soviet Union created Ukraine. And just 2 weeks ago, he told the world that if the United States and our allies withdraw, and if the United States withdraw, our allies will as well, military support for Ukraine would have, quote, a week left to live, but we're not withdrawing. I know these conflicts can seem far away, and it's natural to ask, why does this matter to America? So let me share with you why making sure Israel and Ukraine succeed is vital for America's national security. You know, history has taught us that when terrorists don't pay a price for their terror, when dictators don't pay a price for their aggression, they cause more chaos and death and more destruction. They keep going, and the cost and the threats to America and the world keep rising. So if we don't stop Putin's appetite for power and control in Ukraine, he won't limit himself just to Ukraine. Putin's already threatened to remind Poland that their Western land was a gift from Russia. One of his top advisors, a former president of Russia, has called Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania Russia's Baltic provinces. These are all NATO allies. For 75 years, NATO has kept peace in Europe and has been the cornerstone of American security. And if Putin attacks a NATO ally, we will defend every inch of NATO which the treaty requires and calls for. We'll have something that we do not seek. Make it clear, we do not seek. We do not seek to have American troops fighting in Russia or fighting against Russia. Beyond Europe, we know that our allies, and maybe most importantly our adversaries and competitors, are watching. They're watching our response in Ukraine as well. And if we walk away and let Putin erase Ukraine's independence, would-be aggressors around the world would be emboldened to try the same. The risk of conflict and chaos could spread in other parts of the world, in the Indo-Pacific, in the Middle East, especially in the Middle East. Iran is supporting Russia in Ukraine, and it's supporting Hamas and other terrorist groups in the region, and will continue to hold them accountable, I might add. The United States and our partners across the region are working to build a better future for the Middle East. One where the Middle East is more stable, better connected to its neighbors, and through innovative projects like the India Middle East Europe Rail Corridor that I announced this year at the summit of the world's biggest economies. More predictable markets, more employment, less rage, less grievances, less war when connected. It benefits the people who would benefit the people of the Middle East and would benefit us. American leadership is what holds the world together. American alliances are what keep us, America, safe. American values are what make us a partner that other nations want to work with. To put all that at risk, if we walk away from Ukraine, if we turn our backs on Israel, it's just not worth it. That's why tomorrow I'm going to send to Congress an urgent budget request to fund America's national security needs, to support our critical partners, including Israel and Ukraine. Is a smart investment that's going to pay dividends for American security.
Welcome back, and getting you some more latest information which is coming in. And after 41 diplomats, Canada withdrew them from India. Top government sources tell News 18 that the statement that Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, the Canadian Prime Minister, had made on the floor of the House in Parliament in Canada, that India had some kind of involvement about the killing of Nijjar, it seems like that there is no evidence on record to prove any of those claims. Top sources revealed to near Network 18 that the Indian government actually tried to reach out to the Canadian authorities through back channels and figure out that if there is any evidence and credible evidence that exists on record to prove the claims that were made by Canadian Prime Minister. But it seems like after that political noise that was made and the manner in which it was escalated, it has not been substantiated to that great extent. Anand, no proof on the table to make the claims that were earlier put out with so much, so much loud noises and the kind of stand that Canada had taken.
True, and in terms of misinformation or trying to spin the narrative in a different way altogether, we've seen what the Foreign Minister of Canada tried to do, even with the 41 diplomats being asked to be, sent back or recalled. That was the request that was made, and the kind of language that was used tried to insinuate that India was trying to play a diplomatic game here, or trying to be unreasonable, trying to bring forth Vienna Convention, etc. But India has just said parity is what we want. The same number of people there, same number of people here. On the other hand, as far as Hardeep Nijjar, it is interesting that more than 2.5 months has gone by. Justin Trudeau has not even been able to convince his opposition, the people in Canada itself, forget convincing India. On the and we are openly saying, if CNN News 18 can access this and our group editor security Manoj Gupta can access it, clearly the Canadians cannot refute it. The fact that backdoor channels, we are saying, give us evidence, come and prove where is the case, where is the FIR, because time and again the Canadian government has turned around and said the Canadian courts will decide, but the courts can decide based only on a charge sheet that's been filed. Where is the charge sheet? Does the charge sheet name suspects? Do you have even video proof? Do you have the names of who did it? They don't know. Not just Hardeep Nijjar, they have no clue who killed Ripudaman Singh. That also Ripudaman Singh Malik, 2 years ago it happened, they have no clue. They don't know who killed the Baloch activist in 2020. They have not brought forth the Canada cops have got no clue, and there is no, it was not even called a criminal death. It was said that it was a non-criminal act, her death. So Karima Baloch. So in all cases, the point is, okay, Ripudaman Singh Malik was also killed on Canadian soil. Who killed Ripudaman Singh Malik? They have no answers. Hardeep Singh Nijjar, especially, which was raised by Justin Trudeau. If a Prime Minister of a country is saying that and making an allegation and he's ready to drive a diplomatic wedge because of this, then there should be some proof, and if Canada was really serious about acting on it, there should be proof. And even on backdoor channels, if we are repeatedly saying, give us the proof, tell us the evidence, what are the names, who are these people, they've not got any answers. So clearly somewhere Canada, not just on the back foot, they seem to have committed a huge diplomatic harakiri, and the heat is on them now. The Five Eyes will also turn around and say, give us the evidence. If we have given you intel, you have gone ahead and shared it to the whole world and to the Canadian Parliament, then go ahead and back it with claim and proof.
This entire chapter is going to be remembered as a dark chapter, because India and Canada have traditionally enjoyed good relationship, and it seems like that to counter the domestic factors which were not working in favor of Justin Trudeau, he tried to rake up this controversy with India. But any democratic country or with certain degree of due process, as you said, would put the evidence on the table. Canada has not been able to do that. This is bound to have a backlash even domestically, not just from the opposition but from the Canadian citizens as well.
This could also be seen, Anusha, and to our viewers, as a massive deflect attention kind of a thing, that let's try and pin it on India, thinking that we as a nation will not be as strong in our response as we were, because there was a lot of heat on Justin Trudeau and his administration on the Chinese intelligence activities on China, and their meddling in Canada's internal affairs. Who killed him on Canadian soil? There was no answer. The Chinese meddling into Canadian politics, their interference, what huge questions that were being raised by the Canadian opposition there and by the people. And to deflect that, did Justin Trudeau just name Hardeep Nijjar's death and speak about this as a larger question, thinking that India would be easier to manage or to try and deflect attention and try and politically milk it. But now this has become a double whammy for him, because he's neither able to answer what happened in Canadian with the Chinese intelligence. He's saying Indians are also meddling, and many other nations are saying persons of our interest are finding safe havens on Canadian soil. So much so Israel is also saying that Hamas activists are actually riling up and doing protests on Canadian soil, and Justin Trudeau administration is at a loss to try and curb these elements. The ex-Hamas chief is based in Canada right now, and he's a Canadian citizen. So the Trudeau administration finds itself cornered because Canada now seems to be the safe haven for all nefarious elements. Now, is that what the Trudeau administration and the Canadian government wants to be known as? In the garb of a nation that respects freedom of speech and allows all citizens, aren't you checking their antecedents? So that's a question that the Canadians now have to answer.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Anand, for your time, and thank you for joining us on The Nation at 5. Let's also listen in to what the Canadian Finance Minister said earlier. Let's listen into that soundbite.
We've had numerous conversations with India before the Prime Minister went in front of the House and made his declaration. This was not a surprise to the government of India.
A surprise, but the evidence, did you show them the
And
evidence?
through these different conversations, the Indian officials were made aware of the credible allegations. And so based on that, India has decided to take their own decisions, which are precedent-setting, and revoking the diplomatic immunity of 41 diplomats is not only unprecedented, but also contrary to international law.
Well, now shifting our focus to that conflict in West Asia, the Israel-Hamas war has entered day 14, and the casualties on the Gaza Strip and West Bank continue to only increase with time. After one hospital was targeted that claimed the life of about 500 individuals, there was another hospital yesterday evening that came under attack, and about 13 casualties were reported there. Humanitarian crisis continues to mount. Israel has vowed that it will continue the counter-offensive till the Hamas terrorists are wiped out. Israel also points out to the hostage-like situation that exists along the Gaza Strip, where various Israelis have been taken hostage by the terror group called Hamas. As far as the Western superpowers are concerned, whether it's the United States of America, France, UK, all of them have rallied in support of Israel. Those are the developments, those are the updates coming in. As far as the Rafah border is concerned, there is limited aid which is spilling there. Whatever limited aid is able to reach Gaza or the West Bank at this point in time is from international organizations and agencies. India continues to maintain that it will support Israel in this hour of crisis, but yes, the humanitarian crisis unfolding in Gaza and the kind of lives that were lost in Israel, both are an equal matter of concern. We also get you this special report from CNN International. Let's have a look.
Russian President Vladimir Putin, an accused war criminal in the West, a guest of honor in Beijing. Chinese President Xi Jinping feasting with a fellow strongman, triumphantly toasting their vision of a new world order. A world prioritizing Palestinians over Western-backed Israel, pitting the Putin-Xi world against the US-led free world. Russia and China refusing to strongly condemn the Hamas attack. Putin placing blame on the US for the conflict, not Hamas gunmen, who also took Russian lives. Both Beijing and Moscow criticizing Israel's actions, condemning Tuesday's deadly hospital blast. The Palestinians say hundreds died. Russia calling it an act of dehumanization, urging Israel to prove its innocence. China says Israel played a part in provoking Palestinian rage. Decades of diplomacy without a two-state solution.
Israel has the right to establish a state. Palestine has the right to establish a state as well.
China's heavily censored social media overflowing with pro-Palestinian posts, and plenty of anger aimed at Israel and the U.S. One user writes, "The only way to get peace in the Middle East is for the Jews to move to America and build a nation there."
Someone who is the Director of Communications for the United Nations Relief and Works Agency talked to us about the situation in Gaza, as you know, especially after the deadly blast on Al-Ahli Hospital. And now there's been another airstrike on Khan Yunis in southern Gaza, despite large number of Palestinians moving there after Israel urged Gazans to evacuate south.
Well, no place is safe in the Gaza Strip. No place is safe. Even schools and hospitals are no longer safe. Even UN facilities are no longer safe. At UNRWA, at least 30 of our facilities and installations have been impacted in one way or another. We had one school, an UNRWA school, that was sheltering the displaced. It also got hit. And so no place is safe, and it is about time that there is a ceasefire that puts an end to all of this for the sake of civilians wherever they are.
The United Nations Relief and Works Agency has already made it amply clear that Gaza is on the brink of a major health and sanitation crisis. Juliet, 65% of the population has already been living there below poverty line even before the outbreak of the war. Yes, Israel has agreed to permit water, food, and other supplies to Gaza via Egypt. But as we all know, it's going to be a long war, as has already been declared by Israel's Prime Minister. How can Arab nations and the global community help in averting this humanitarian crisis any further?
Let me just emphasize one thing. UNRWA and the rest of the humanitarian family in the Gaza Strip, all of us, we have not been able to deliver any supplies into the Gaza Strip since the 7th of October. Nothing. We have sent no supplies. No supplies.
Juliet, on Wednesday...
Gaza is under siege. Gaza is under siege. And the siege needs to be lifted. What we're calling for at UNRWA is for sustained and regular humanitarian access, so that we are able to send in humanitarian supplies that people like you and I need desperately.
Well, we'll continue tracking that story and much more here on CNN News 18 on the other side of a very quick break. Stay tuned, stay with us.
Warning of a rocket attack.
Hundreds of people were killed.
गाजा बॉर्डर जिरौट की पहली बार हम यहाँ पहुँचे हम.
Does Israel want a wider war? Does this derail all of that?
How do you see the Indian government stand as of now?
What we have witnessed in Israel as part of these Hamas attacks.
Brought to you by... Help us keep American troops out of harm's way. Help us build a world that is safer, more peaceful, more prosperous for our children and grandchildren. In Israel, we must make sure that they have what they need to protect their people today and always. The security package I'm sending to Congress and asking Congress to do is an unprecedented commitment to Israel's security that will sharpen Israel's qualitative military edge, which we've committed to, the qualitative military edge. We're going to make sure Iron Dome continues to guard the skies over Israel. We're going to make sure other hostile actors in the region know that Israel is stronger than ever and prevent this conflict from spreading. Look, at the same time, President Netanyahu and I discussed again yesterday the critical need for Israel to operate by the laws of war. That means protecting civilians in combat as best as they can. The people of Gaza urgently need food, water, and medicine. Yesterday, in discussions with the leaders of Israel and Egypt, I secured an agreement for the first shipment of humanitarian assistance from the United Nations to Palestinian civilians in Gaza. If Hamas does not divert or steal these shipments, we're going to provide an opening for sustained delivery of life-saving humanitarian assistance for the Palestinians. As I said in Israel, as hard as it is, we cannot give up on peace. We cannot give up on a two-state solution. Israel and Palestinians equally deserve to live in safety, dignity, and peace. You know, and here at home, we have to be honest with ourselves. In recent years, too much hate has given too much oxygen, fueling racism, the rise of anti-Semitism, and Islamophobia, right here in America. It's also intensified in the wake of recent events that led to the horrific threats and attacks that both shock us and break our hearts. On October 7th, terror attacks have triggered deep scars and terrible memories in the Jewish community. Today, Jewish families worried about being targeted in school, wearing symbols of their face walking down the street, or going out about their daily lives. And I know many of you in the Muslim American community, the Arab American community, the Palestinian American community, and so many others are outraged and heartened, saying to yourselves, here we go again with Islamophobia and distrust we saw after 9/11. Just last week, a mother was brutally stabbed. A little boy, here in the United States, a little boy who just turned 6 years old was murdered in their home outside of Chicago. His name was Wadiha, a proud American, a proud Palestinian American family. We can't stand by and stand silent when this happens. We must, without equivocation, denounce anti-Semitism. We must also, without equivocation, denounce Islamophobia. And to all you hurting, those of you hurting, I want you to know I see you. You belong. And I want to say this to you. You're all America. You're all American. This is in a moment, in moments like these, when fear and suspicion, anger and rage run hard, that we have to work harder than ever to hold on to the values that make us who we are. We're a nation of religious freedom, freedom of expression. We all have a right to debate and disagree without fear of being targeted in schools or workplaces or in our communities. We must renounce violence and vitriol. See each other not as enemies, but as fellow Americans. When I was in Israel yesterday, I said that when America experienced the hell of 9/11, we felt enraged as well. While we sought and got justice, we made mistakes. So I cautioned the government of Israel not to be blinded by rage. In Congress, to make sure we can continue to send Ukraine the weapons they need to defend themselves and their country without interruption, so Ukraine can stop Putin's brutality in Ukraine. They are succeeding. When Putin invaded Ukraine, he thought he would take Kyiv and all of Ukraine in a matter of days. Well, over a year later, Putin has failed, and he continues to fail. Kyiv still stands because of the bravery of the Ukrainian people. Ukraine has regained more than 50% of the territory Russian troops once occupied, backed by U.S.-led coalition of more than 50 countries around the world, all doing its part to support Kyiv. What would happen if we walked away? We are the essential nation. Meanwhile, Putin has turned to Iran and North Korea to buy attack drones and ammunition to terrorize Ukrainian cities and people. From the outset, I've said, I will not send American troops to fight in Ukraine. All Ukraine is asking for is help, for the weapons, munitions, the capacity, the capability to push invading Russian forces off their land, and the air defense system to shoot down Russian missiles before they destroy Ukrainian cities. Let me be clear about something. We send Ukrainian equipment sitting in our stockpiles. And when we use the money allocated by Congress, we use it to replenish our own stores, our own stockpiles, with new equipment. Equipment that defends America and is made in America. Patriot missiles for air defense batteries, made in Arizona. Artillery shells manufactured in 12 states across the country, in Pennsylvania, Ohio, Texas, and so much more. You know, just as in World War II, today patriotic American workers are building the arsenal of democracy and serving the cause of freedom. Let me close with this. Earlier this year, I boarded Air Force One for a secret flight to Poland. There I boarded a train with blacked out windows for a 10-hour ride each way to Kyiv, to stand with the people of Ukraine ahead of the one-year anniversary of their brave fight against Putin. I'm told I was the first American to enter a war zone not controlled by the United States military since President Lincoln. With me was just a small group of security personnel and a few advisors. But when I exited that train and met Zelensky, President Zelensky, I didn't feel alone. I was bringing with me the idea of America, the promise of America, to the people who are today fighting for the same things we fought for 250 years ago: freedom, independence, self-determination. And as I walked through Kyiv with President Zelensky, with air raid sirens sounding in the distance.
Welcome back. And there seems to be rift within the I.N.D.I.A alliance. If the state elections were any litmus test for the opposition alliance as to whether they can have some kind of agreement on core issues like seat sharing, it seems like all is not well within the Samajwadi Party, between Samajwadi Party and the Congress Party. Akhilesh Yadav is clearly miffed, and he has said that had he known that the Congress Party is not interested in any kind of seat sharing, they wouldn't have gone with a proposal to the Madhya Pradesh Congress. The Congress Party sources maintain that they see Madhya Pradesh as a state where the party can do very well, and if the Samajwadi Party would have been a bit more patient, they would have come up with some kind of a seat sharing formula. Clearly both the camps are not happy, and it seems like that in the state of Madhya Pradesh at least there is no seat sharing that's going to be worked out. It's a state dominated by BJP and Congress, and the Congress Party would want to hold on to that fort. Some reactions.
कांग्रेस पार्टी को साफ करना चाहिए था। मेरा मानना यह है कि अगर आपको सीट नहीं देनी थी तो समाजवादियों से बात नहीं करनी चाहिए थी। आपको पहला ही कदम ये उठा लेना चाहिए था कि आप अपना संगठन और अपनी पार्टी के हिसाब से लड़िए, और जो सहयोग चाहते वो बता देते तो शायद समाजवादी पार्टी सहयोग करती और खड़ी रहती। लेकिन उन्होंने कोई जानकारी नहीं दी, न कोई समाजवादी पार्टी को इस लायक समझा उन्होंने। इसलिए समाजवादी पार्टी वहीं लड़ रही है जहां पर समाजवादी पार्टी का संगठन और मजबूत प्रत्याशी। इंडिया गठबंधन से अलग हो गए आप? इंडिया गठबंधन अब मुझे पता लगा है मध्य प्रदेश के बाद भारत के चुनाव के लिए है, इंडिया के चुनाव के लिए है, देश के चुनाव के लिए है। तो देश का चुनाव आएगा तब बात की जाएगी, और जिसको सीट चाहिए होगी या जिस पे बातचीत होगी वो अलग प्लेटफॉर्म है। लेकिन ये सवाल ये है, क्रेडिबिलिटी का है कि अगर कांग्रेस इसी तरह का व्यवहार करेगी तो कौन उनके साथ खड़ा होगा। इसलिए मैं कोई राय सुझाव नहीं दे रहा हूँ कांग्रेस पार्टी को, लेकिन देश के सामने बड़ी चुनौती है। बीजेपी बड़ी पार्टी है, बीजेपी बहुत ऑर्गेनाइज्ड दल है, इसलिए उसके मुकाबले के लिए कोई भी कंफ्यूजन किसी दल के अंदर नहीं होना चाहिए। अगर कंफ्यूजन के साथ आप चुनाव लड़ोगे बीजेपी से तो आप कामयाब नहीं होगे।
जब ये प्रत्याशी घोषित हुए, आप 6 प्रत्याशी की बात करते हैं, 7 कैंडिडेट तो आपने पहले ही घोषित कर दिया था, तो आप 6 की बात कर रहे हैं। इसका मतलब कि आप समझ सकते हैं कि उन्होंने क्या बात बोली है। इससे आप उनका निकाल लीजिए कि अखिलेश जी ने कहा कि 6 सीट, और मैं ये है कि 7 सीट उन्होंने पहले ही घोषित कर दिया। कांग्रेस के प्रत्याशी आने के पहले ही अखिलेश जी ने 7 कैंडिडेट घोषित कर दिए, तो उसमें बात सामने आ गई ना कि 6 चाहते थे कि ज़्यादा चाहते थे। कौन सही बोल रहा है कौन गलत बोल रहा है, सामने बातें आ गई। जैसे हम लोगों ने घोसी में सहयोग किया, उसी प्रकार उनको मध्य प्रदेश में सहयोग करना चाहिए और कांग्रेस को वहां मदद करिए। और आप कहते हैं कि भारतीय जनता पार्टी को हराना है, तो भारतीय जनता पार्टी को और हराना है तो मध्य प्रदेश में कांग्रेस का समर्थन करिए, साथ दीजिए।
कांग्रेस को इन छोटे नेताओं पर रोक लगाना चाहिए। अगर इंडिया गठबंधन को मजबूत करना है और भारतीय जनता पार्टी को अगर हटाना है तो सभी विपक्ष के लोगों को इकट्ठा करके इंडिया गठबंधन को मजबूत करना चाहिए, और तभी भारतीय जनता पार्टी हट सकते हैं। अगर भारतीय जनता पार्टी को कांग्रेस को हटाना है तो फिर सबको इकट्ठा करें, और फिर जो मध्य प्रदेश में जो वादा किया था उस पर अडिग रहना चाहिए था, तो तभी इंडिया गठबंधन मजबूत होगा और तभी भारतीय जनता पार्टी को हटाया जा सकता है।
मुझे ऐसा लगता है कि जो इंडिया गठबंधन है उसमें हम सब एक साथ हैं। उनका रुष्ट होना अपनी जगह है, वो थोड़े नाराज हैं, परिवार के लोग नाराज हो जाते हैं, उनको मना लेंगे। लेकिन हर बार गठबंधन के सवाल, हर बार आगे क्या होगा पर सवाल उठा देना, मुझे लगता है थोड़ी राजनीतिक अनियमितता है। हमारी पार्टी के बहुत सारे लोग हैं जो उसे टच में हैं और जरूर हमको समाधान निकालेंगे।
So yesterday Akhilesh Yadav has said that Congress did not tell them that the alliance is only for the Lok Sabha polls and not for the Assembly polls. And he even said that if he would have known this, he wouldn't have sent his party members to meet Kamal Nath or Digvijay Singh.
It's a national alliance. We try our best to come together at every level. But by and large,
India is a national alliance for the upcoming Lok Sabha election.
So nothing for the assembly polls.
As I said, by and large, it is for the Lok Sabha elections, but we do try and come together in the journey towards the Lok Sabha election.
अखिलेश जी कोई नाराज नहीं है। अखिलेश जी के डीएनए में सांप्रदायिक ताकतों के खिलाफ लड़ने वाला रक्त प्रवाहित होता है और वो हमारे 2024 के लिए हुए इंडिया गठबंधन के एक बड़े पार्टनर हैं। मध्य प्रदेश के संदर्भ में हमारे नेता माननीय कमल नाथ जी और उनके ताल्लुक बहुत अच्छे हैं। उसका इजहार माननीय कमल नाथ जी ने 2 दिन पहले आप लोगों से चर्चा करते हुए किया है। तो मैं ऐसा मानता हूं कि अखिलेश जी मध्य प्रदेश में भारतीय जनता पार्टी को ताकत मिले ऐसा कोई निर्णय नहीं लेंगे और कमलनाथ जी यूं भी उन्हें पुत्रवत मानते हैं।
देखिए, मैं फिर कह रहा हूं आपसे कि किसने क्या कहा मुझे नहीं मालूम, ना कौन क्या बोला। मैं चुनाव के पहले अभी अंतिम दिन तो नहीं गया, हमें प्रतीक्षा करनी चाहिए। और इंडिया गठबंधन इंटैक्ट है। आज हमने तो राम गोपाल जी का बयान सुना, तो उसमें कहीं कोई इफ वट नहीं है। अब वो क्या है हर स्टेज पे तो नहीं बोला जा सकता, तो मैं सिर्फ इतने कह सकता हूँ, ऑल इज वेल।
देखिए, इंडी अलायंस 2023 का सबसे बड़ा मजाक था। भारतीय जनता पार्टी तो ये बात पहले से कह रही थी कि ये इंडी अलायंस केवल मीडिया में सुर्खियां बटोर सकता है, जमीनी स्तर पर नहीं आ सकता है, क्योंकि अति महत्वाकांक्षी लोगों में सबकी ये इच्छा है कि हम पीएम बने। नीतीश कुमार जी भी इसी इच्छा के साथ आए थे, लेकिन वो इच्छा जब पूरी नहीं दिख रही तो आज गठबंधन से अपने आप को किनारे करते हुए दिखाई दे रहे हैं। अखिलेश यादव जी बड़े अरमान के साथ थे कि उनका नाम पीएम प्रपोज्ड होगा, लेकिन पीएम नाम भी प्रपोज नहीं हुआ। और अब एमपी में तो उनको एक भी टिकट नहीं दिया, रात भर उनको बिठाया, टिकट का आश्वासन दिया। कमलनाथ और दिग्विजय सिंह ने उनके साथ जो खेल किया, उसके कारण अब अखिलेश यादव ने भी आंखें तरेड़ ली हैं, बाहें चढ़ा ली हैं। गठबंधन तो पहले दिन ही ये तय था कि गठबंधन कभी परवान नहीं चढ़ सकता, गठबंधन खंड खंड टूट जाएगा।
Well, let's talk about the air quality. The winter is all set to come, and here in the north of the country, air quality, especially in Delhi, is a huge cause of concern. But the maximum city of Mumbai has never seen the poor air quality like it witnesses this year. In Bikaji Kama Place, the air quality index has been a very poor one. In different parts of Mumbai, the air quality which has been reported is a worrying sign, and a lot of experts and environmentalists have been worried about it, expressed concern. The primary reason for this air quality has been cited as the rampant construction activity is underway in different parts of Mumbai, including the suburbs. Yasha Kota with a special report. Have a look.
Mumbai has been witnessing bad air quality days since the last 2 to 3 days. This in fact is a sign after the monsoon. It's the first ever since then that Mumbai has been witnessing bad air quality days. Last year around the same time as the onset of winters and winters had set in, Mumbai had been witnessing bad air quality. In fact, right now, as we compare, the air quality in Mumbai is even worse than that of Delhi. We're here at Chembur, which is one of the locations where there have been bad quality days that have also been experienced. In fact, over the last 2 days, this area and the nearby Navi Mumbai, which is a part of the Mumbai metropolitan region, have been recording air quality of worse than 317, more than 300, which is in fact in a very severe category. As well as that, apart from that, there are various systems, the reading systems such as that of Safar, who suggested that right now the air quality is so bad that it is not fit for sensitive people to be stepping out. Mumbai's air quality has also been in a very poor category. This in fact parts of Mumbai's suburbs, which includes that of Mazgaon, Andheri as well as Navi Mumbai, they have been in a very poor air category. That at Andheri was recorded 346. Apart from that, Mazgaon's air quality was 317 and that of Navi Mumbai was 317 as well.
If you could tell us, this is something that is close to your heart. Mumbai's air quality is bad yet again.
Well, thank you for having me. I think it's actually closer to my lungs than it is to my heart, unfortunately. But jokes apart, on a far more serious note, I think it's very critical for people to understand what is AQI. AQI is a measurement which is called Air Quality Index, which essentially measures the quality of the air that we breathe, the air in our environment, in our cities, in our localities even. And there are essentially two types of air qualities that are measured around the world. One is something called nitrogen oxides. Largely that comes from vehicular pollution. So if you look at a city like London, a very developed city in the world, they have one of the highest nitrogen oxide levels in the world. Also very harmful for the human body, causes a lot of respiratory illnesses, can cause asthma, can cause bronchial infections, coughing, permanent damage to the lungs, especially for young children who are exposed to it for prolonged periods. Which is why Vinaya, in a city like London, they impose something called a congestion tax, wherein for cars coming into the downtown of that city, they were charged a certain fee. In a city like Mumbai, in Delhi, even in Beijing, which was at one point a few years ago the most polluted city in the world, there is a far more notorious, a far more dangerous form of AQI, and that is called PM or particulate matter. There's two types of PM, particulate matter 2.5 and PM10. In very lay terms, that essentially means a floating particle of dust, which gets embedded in your lungs and it slowly corrodes your lungs. It corrodes the covering and protective layers of your lung, and it eventually damages you. It eventually prevents you from breathing, and it restricts your breathing capacity.
Welcome everyone. Thanks a lot for staying with us. You're watching Plain Speak with me, Shivani Gupta. It's been a dramatic few days for TMC MP Mahua Moitra. Known for her fierce attacks on the Modi government and fiery speeches in and outside Parliament, the first time MP has landed in a big soup. She's been alleged to have taken personal monetary favours and gifts from a business group in exchange for asking questions targeting another business group in Parliament. The problem doesn't end there for her though. She's also accused of sharing her parliamentary login